All right, Karthik's in here at the room with me, so he'll
Yeah.
introduce it.
All right. Well, so in my case, I've been actually getting really interested in the past 4 or 5 months in playing chess and learning more about it. And what I've noticed is like sometimes I watch some of the content online about people teaching how to play chess, and what they can do is they can look at a board and just like evaluate it by saying, who's got the better position, which side is better off, what the score might be roughly. And I've not been able to do that. So what I thought was maybe I can try to see if I can get GenAI to try to do something like that as a chess assistant. So what I did was I took a open source chess app, which is purely in Python. So essentially, basically you can play this game. It's a pretty intuitive app but it doesn't have anything to do with Gen AI, right? So the code that came was just like, pretty much just, you play a normal chess game on here. So what I thought was, how would I be able to, integrate some of the stuff that we've learned in the class in order to make this kind of Gen AI aware? So what I did was, and the other thing was that, a lot of times, like, the LLMs are really text-based, so you've got to like type a bunch of stuff and then you get a response, you got to read it. So what I thought was, well, my idea was that maybe to try to make this so that you don't have to type much. So what I did instead was I programmed these like hotkeys, which I guess only Jared can see because he's the only one that can see my keyboard. But basically, for example, you could press the key like on your keyboard E for evaluate, and then if you press evaluate, what it does is it actually goes to our endpoint. And then, well, before that, what it's going to do is it's going to go through and then figure out where all these pieces are on the board. And then it puts it in a certain type of a notation, and then goes to the endpoint and comes back with the prompt. Basically, it says, based on these pieces, can you evaluate this? And it says it's relatively balanced, seems to have a slightly, yeah. So it'll kind of come back with a response based upon what it sees on the board. And what I noticed was that the way that I was first doing this was to say that, the black rook is on A8, and then the next one would be like the black knight was on this square, and just kind of goes through in a loop and gets that, and then sends that to the endpoint, and then comes back with an answer. And it was kind of confusing it, and it wasn't really doing that well with it. So I looked up online and I said, like, what is a better way of prompting like a LLM to help it understand the status of a chessboard? And it said that there was something called a Fen notation, which I didn't know anything about, but evidently it is just a string of characters that describe what the status of a board is. So what I did was I created, so this assistant, I called it Burke, which I can go into why I called it Burke, but that's the name of the assistant. And then the first thing that it does is it goes through and hits it up to say, convert this position string to a chess Fen notation and respond back only with the Fen notation. So then it comes back, well, the content or the context or the system content is that you're an expert in chess Fen notation. So it'll come back and give you that notation. And then you take that notation, the position in Fen notation, and then you can prompt it with your prompt. And so the first one that I showed you was just evaluate this position. But you can also do things like, I have another one, a hotkey that says you can press W, and then it will say, like, it'll tell you what is the next best move for white. And so now it's actually going and hitting that endpoint up. And then usually it's a bit faster than this, but maybe with the Wi-Fi and
Wi-Fi, and then Azure can sometimes our endpoint will slow down.
Yeah, and especially when you're doing a demo, it slows down.
Of course.
But I'm not sure what.
It may have timed out. Just hit W again or whatever.
Yeah. Huh. That's strange to me. Let's see if I'm on. Yeah. So it'll come back and say, if you hit W, it'll say what the next best move for white is. And then if you hit B, it'll say what the next best move for black is. And then there's also S as a hotkey, which will come back with a score. I'm actually going to try to kill this for now.
Yeah, it looked like the spinner went away, so it may have just got hung up.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that happen. Let's see what.
It's the law of demos.
Yeah, exactly, right? What I'm basically doing is I'm just programming some hotkeys in here that say, so if you press E, for example, if you hit the keyboard E button, then it'll say evaluate why white or black is better in this position. And then the W will be the white's next best move. B would be the black's next best move. And then evaluate the score of white from -20 to 20 in this position. Yeah, so let's see here. So if I don't know if it's going to connect now or not, but yeah, so this is what it was supposed to come back with. White should play this to control the center and prepare for rapid development. So I could play that, and then I could say, what does it want me to do for black? So now it's a lot faster for whatever reason. Black's best move is this to counter the central position. So you can actually play along with it and learn. Like what I've noticed is that this was a good exercise for me to learn about how to incorporate GenAI and LLMs and what was our model, GPT-4o, into an app. But what I realized was that GPT-4o wasn't very good at chess. It does make a lot of mistakes. But then I would take that same exact prompt and put it into like Perplexity AI or Claude, and I would get back much more reasonable responses. Obviously, I don't think we've got that set up in our environment, but this was just a way for me to learn about how to use that. And then you can also see I also put the output of the prompt here as well, so I can actually see like this is the Fen notation, and then this is the full prompt as well. And the other thing that I also learned, I mean, I had not used Copilot within VS Code before, and it was really, really helpful. Like, I know it's not always going to be helpful, but for whatever reason with Python, and Pygame was something that I had not used before either. So for example, when I first wrote this app, like I had a pop-up that would come up and then show the text, and it was really, really ugly. It was horrible. Like I didn't know how to do it. Like the text was blurry, and I literally just went into the Copilot right here, and I just said, I think you can actually even see it. Like I don't know if I still have that prompt. Yeah, I was asking it like, what are some better fonts in Arial, but that wasn't the main one that I wanted to show. There was one, I don't really like how the text looks and renders. Can you modify the code to make the pop-up look nicer? And it literally gave me the code to make it look nicer. And all I had to do is just press this one button and run it. And I thought it wouldn't work, but it actually worked right off the bat. Like it came back and then it had made the pop-up look a lot better, which I thought was really a time saver, and it was really, really helpful. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was, so Burke is actually the name of the chess bot, the chess assistant. Since it's an assistant and it's March Madness, my favorite team is the Wolverines, and I was thinking of like who's a point guard that I really like for the Wolverines, and with March Madness and stuff coming up, Trey Burke actually hit a really awesome shot in many years ago, probably a decade ago. So I thought I'll call it Burke. I've also got a colleague here with the last name Burke, so it all worked out. But I was thinking what I could do is also create another, like to make it more agentic. I could create another, instead of Burke.py, I could have another one called whatever else.py and have that agent be a check on this and say like send back what this next best white move is to another agent that's supposed to be like maybe a grandmaster, and then come back and say what are the drawbacks of doing that move. And so you can kind of pump whatever Burke says and cross check it with another agent. I was thinking to do that. It wouldn't really take me too long, but I just haven't had the time to do that yet. But that's something that I wanted to do to kind of try out that whole agentic stuff. And then, yeah, I think that was really all I wanted to show, unless there's any questions.
Cool. So you said so like when you're playing it, you just hit either W or B to tell you what the next best, it tells you what the next best move is.
Yes, that's right. So black just went, so if I press W, so white's best move is this, develop and attack the pawn.
And you have it all, yeah, I see your grid's already numbered, yeah, okay, got it. Cool.
Yeah, the grid's already numbered, so you can actually just follow right along and do that move. And so now you're attacking that. You can hit B and it'll tell you what to do next for B, which is probably to protect that pawn. Oh, Oh, interesting. Maybe something happened with the endpoint. So,
Yeah, so it's like we're having issues in this room, so
oh, there it is. Yeah, to develop the night. Yep.
cool. Cool. I like it.
Okay, well, let's see how this works. I am going to try to add another agent. So I'm just gonna choose Burke right here, and then I'm gonna try and see if this works. Let's see here. Create a copy of this file and call it magnus.py. Change the system content to you are a chess grandmaster that can validate other people's chess evaluations and suggestions. I want you to be able to respond to suggestions by saying if there is a better move or evaluation. Let's see what happens. Okay, there it is. There's a new file called Magnus. Let's see what it did for Magnus. Okay, so it changed the system content correctly. You're a chess grandmaster. Looks good. Here it also kept the get fen method. We actually don't need that. So I'm going to delete this. Ask Magnus. It actually changed ask Burke to ask Magnus. Everything else it kept the same. So we don't need this anymore. But we will change this instead of evaluate position. Let's say we want to call it validate position. Okay, let's see here. So what we want to do is we want to pass in a fen notation. We want to pass in a fen notation and Burke's evaluation. And then we want it to give us feedback. So for validate position, we want to get the fen and the suggestion. Okay, so in less than, we actually want to keep that actually, number of words, but we want to have the suggestion as well. Okay, so I don't think we need the context. Actually, let's do it this way. Let's change context to suggestion. Okay, so how do we want to do this prompt? Let's see here. Let's make a little bit more space and then prompt equals. Wow, it already came up with validate this position. Wow, that's really good. It already figured out what we want to say. Validate this position with this suggestion by telling us if there is a far better suggestion. Okay, So then we don't need this anymore. So we just kind of replace the prompt. Okay. To validate. Actually, we should say validate suggestion. This is not validating a position, it's validating the suggestion. Validate suggestion. So for better suggestion. Okay. So that's the prompt. We have all of this set up correctly. Okay, that's all good. Okay, we have error. Okay. Just in case it can't connect, it's going to come back with this. Okay. So we do actually have to use number of words because we want to limit it to the number of words it comes back with. In less than okay. So in less than this word number, in less than that number of words. Okay. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, so now we need to go in and use Magnus. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to create another hotkey. Let's use the key M. We don't need the context, but what we will need is the suggestion. Okay, and we already have the fen, so we don't need to do this, but we'll keep that for now. Let's see here. Okay, so about the response, or we'll call it Magnus input. Let's call it Magnus feedback. If I can spell. Okay, Magnus feedback equals Magnus dot create this. Okay, where's Burke? Okay, we need. Look at this. It already suggested it. It knows we have to import that. That is amazing. Okay, that's just amazing. Interesting. I shouldn't have capitalized that, but okay. Import Magnus. Let's see. Right there. Boom. This is amazing. Okay, and then it probably already knows we have to do this as well. It already suggests it. I mean, how much time does that save? I don't even have to think. I just need to know where I need to put it. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so now we have an instance of the class Magnus. And I should have not put a capital M there. That was because I prompted it incorrectly. Right here. I shouldn't have put capital Magnus.py. I should have put lowercase Magnus.py. But okay, just to keep it all consistent. That's all right. Actually, let me go ahead and change that. I don't really like that. Let's see, rename. Magnus.py. Okay. Now here I need to change this back to Magnus just to keep everything consistent. Okay. All right, perfect. So everything else is fine. And then now we have an instance of Magnus, so we can actually take Magnus dot. It's going to know what I need, which is validate suggestion. And then now I'm going to pass it in the position and the number of words and the suggestion. Okay. So now what I need to do is also add that here. Magnus's feedback. Okay, perfect. Okay, let me see here. What I need to do is, so the good thing is this get position will only go out and ask for the fen notation one time for a given position. It's smart enough to not go ahead and do that twice. So I can go ahead and afford to get the position, which is not a problem. Now this suggestion, I have got to make sure I get the suggestion from the previous request. And how will I do that? Well, Burke, maybe what I should do is I should keep latest evaluation here. I think it keeps, I think I want to keep the latest evaluation. Yeah, let's just keep the latest evaluation. I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it, but that's fine. In the main loop, I'm going to say latest eval equals there hasn't been a Burke eval just yet. Okay, so that's when it first starts. But once we get an evaluation, I'm going to save that off. Latest eval equals evaluation. Let's just save off that as the latest evaluation. And then for validate suggestion, we just use this latest eval. And then we want to show this feedback here. We don't call this. Yeah, we don't need that actually. We just need the latest eval. That's going to be the suggestion, and then we validate that. Let me see. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let's try it out. I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll try it out. Okay, let's run the app. Okay, so let's give it a shot. Okay, let's say we want to press W and see what it comes back with. Okay, it wants us to develop this knight to F3, which makes sense. Let's close that, and now let's press M, and let's see what happens. There's no better move. Wow, that's interesting. That's awesome. So Magnus come back and says that's actually the best move. Okay, awesome. Okay, let's see what it says for black now. Okay, so it wants us to move this to d5. Okay, let's try that out. Oh, that's a mistake. It's actually, wait, let's see that. What did that say again? Black. Knight c6 actually. Okay, actually asked me at first to protect it with the pawn, but now it wants me to move the knight to c6. Okay. So when I asked it twice, it actually gave me two different responses, but I think those are both they both make sense. Let's see what Magnus says. M for Magnus. F6. Knight F6. Okay, interesting. I don't know if I agree with that. It wants me. Okay, so Burke asked me to move this knight here to protect. So this knight is attacking that pawn. It wants me to protect that pawn by doing this, which protects that pawn. But now Magnus actually prefers me to do this instead, which actually counterattacks this pawn. That's interesting. Okay, let me see here. So Magnus prefers me to do that instead. I would have done what Burke said, but of course Magnus is supposed to be better. Did I put that he's a grandmaster in here? I think I did. Yeah, you're a chess grandmaster. Okay, so maybe there's just a better move there. Okay, so evaluate and then validate this position, the suggestion. Okay, we'll go with it. We'll go with Magnus. I think Magnus won this one. I don't know why, but I think it makes sense, right? So if this one attacks that, then you've got a counter move by attacking that. Okay, let's see. What is White's next best move? White's best move is knight to capture e5. Okay, so it wants me to capture e5. This knight to capture this pawn. Right there. That's what it wants me to do. Let's see what Magnus says. Better move is knight to capture e5, targeting the weak f7 square. So it's actually interesting. It's actually asking me to do the same thing. It just didn't realize that that was what the suggestion was. That's fine. A little bit of a LLM mistake there, but that's not a huge deal. So they're both asking me to do this. Okay. What does Burke ask for black? Black should play. Yep, capture the knight. Okay. Or capture the pawn, the e4 pawn. So it's wanting me to do this. Let's see what Magnus says. Yes. So they both agree. This is interesting. I've never played it this way, but thanks to Magnus, we've got a kind of a variation. Now, if Magnus Carlsen was actually watching this, he'll probably be cringing and saying, no, there's better ways to do it, but that's fine. Okay, let's keep playing. Let's see what the next one is. Queen e2. Ooh, that is risky. Interesting. Preparing. Okay. Wow. It wants me to take queen and put it right there. Why is that? Because let's say we don't want to get forked by the black. Wait. Let's see here. If black were to move to here, it's protected. If black were to move here, it's also protected, but then you lose your castling rights. So maybe it wants me to protect that by putting the queen here. Okay, let's see what Magnus says. It says that knight f7 is far better, winning material immediately. Really? Knight f7. Magnus wants me to capture this to fork the queen and the rook, but the king can capture there. Okay, well, let's go with Magnus, see what happens. Okay, what is black? Black's got to obviously capture, so let's see what black should do here. Let's see, do it again. Okay. Knight c3. Knight c3. Huh. Interesting. I don't know that I would do that. But these LLMs, this specific LLM isn't great at chess, so we've got to keep that in mind as well. But let's see what Magnus says. There's a far better move. Queen h5. Queen h5. Okay, so that's just actually a mistake. So obviously you can't put h5 here. So there's just a mistake there. Let's ask Burke again. It still wants me to do, okay, so it's asking for knight f2 this time. Okay, well, as you can see, there's a, this is GPT-4o is not doing that great with chess, but you can understand how, I mean, at least the code that we just changed works, right? It is having an agentic framework. It is asking Magnus to validate the position. So all of that is actually really, really good. It works. It's just a matter of what's actually coming back is not perfect. Let's redo this game. Let's just do this again. See what happens when we run it again. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's just play a typical game and see what happens if it. Let's just do something more typical, right? So. Let's just say we're developing pieces like normal. Once you get pretty advanced in this game, I think the LLMs will get confused, but I want to test it out. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Let's see what happens. Okay, this is a pretty advanced position. I'm not advanced. I mean, we just developed pieces, but it's pretty far along in the game, right? Not the very early stages. Let's actually see what the evaluation is right now. I didn't do that last time. Interesting. It says black's position is better. Let's see what Magnus says. Burke says Magnus. Evaluations. Okay, that's interesting. Let's see what the score is. Okay, so see, it contradicts itself there. That's a bit of a mistake. You can ask it to evaluate it, and it says black slightly better, and then when you ask it to give a score, it says white slightly better. Let's evaluate again and see if it comes back with something different. It says black is better. Okay. So there's a bit of a contradiction there. Let's say that we want, to do a suggestion for white. White should play queen b7. Very interesting, because that just doesn't seem. Okay, that was just a total mistake. Obviously, the queen can't get over there. Let's see what Magnus says. Bishop f6. Let's see what that is. F. What? Interesting. Okay, that's totally wrong. Okay, let's just go ahead and let's just do this. Let's just attack. Okay, obviously you got to defend that position. You could defend it with this one, or you can defend with that. But that doubles up the pawn, so let's just say we want to do this, for example. Well, let's see what Burke says. What does Burke say for black? Yeah, h6. So it's asking me. H6. I don't know why it's doing that. No, let's see what Magnus says. E4. Okay, that's not right. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to override Burke and Magnus on this one. Let's see what it says for white now. C7. Okay, it's obviously totally confused right now. Let's see what Magnus says. A8. Okay. Well, as you can see, it's totally confused at this point, which is fine. What I could do is I could take these prompts. I could just copy these prompts and then put them in different LLMs, right? You know, GPT-4o is obviously amazing at what it did with creating this Python file, and it helped me with the pop-up, make it look better, etc. It did some amazing things, but LLMs are really good at certain things, and then other LLMs are really good at other things. So I can tell that GPT-4o gets confused um, with chess. So what I could do is, since I can realize that it's kind of confused, what I could do is I can say, well, that makes no sense. And I can copy this prompt and then put it into a different LLM. And then I can figure out which LLM is actually better at chess. Well, I think that's a really good exercise in being able to use GenAI to make an app a lot more sophisticated, and also to use GenAI to make your development process a lot easier. So I really learned a lot in this process. I think it was a neat way for me to grow in this new world of GenAI, to kind of leverage the power of it to get better at development, to get better at Pygame, to get better at chess. And hope you just enjoyed my experience and just kind of looking at maybe some ideas as to what you can do if you want to create an app, if you want to modify an app, if you want to use GenAI, if you want to use Copilot, which I really suggest, if you want to do something similar to this, or if this inspires you to do something totally different, that's also great. But I just really enjoy this experience. So hope you enjoyed watching this, and hope this was educational and entertaining as well. Thanks for watching.